Welcome to the podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Carrie Heller. I'm a clinical psychologist in private practice in Bethesda, Maryland. I specialize in ADHD and executive function issues, so therefore, one of my overarching focuses is helping people to be more efficient and hopefully more relaxed as well. That being said, let's jump into our topic for today. Why might you want to slow things down? And by that, I mean getting out of the mindset of go, go, go. Perhaps it is unpleasant and revs you up unnecessarily. I know from my own experiences, while I sometimes feel very rushed, it's not really a pleasant experience, and at least for me, I don't feel like I often get more done because of it. However, while you may feel that it helps you be productive, and probably in some cases that's certainly possible, think carefully and examine the extent to which this really does occur. And even if you are being productive, how efficient are you being? Now, let's talk about how to slow things down. And we're going to talk about this step by step and try to make it as easy as possible so you can follow along and do this yourself as we go. Step 1. Identify the different tasks that you actually need to complete in a given routine. For example, let's look at a morning routine. So, an example of a morning routine might be get up, brush teeth, shower. And shower, we want to look more closely than just say shower, because that can be pretty broad. So the idea of washing body with soap, shampoo, conditioner, whatever else you would do in the shower. Washing face, presumably, I guess, when you get out of the shower, or some people do it in the shower. But in any event, list out each individual thing. Next, let's say face moisturizer, brushing or combing hair, getting dressed, eating breakfast, sitting down to start working, or leaving for work. Okay, so now I've given the example of the morning routine in terms of how to break something down step by step. So why don't you identify a routine that you want to work on not being as rushed with, and you can pause the podcast and itemize the things yourself, or listen to the podcast now. You can obviously always go back to it later and look at it again. So now that you've identified what steps you need to take in a given routine, the next thing, which is really important, is to figure out how long should these actually take. So go through each of the steps, estimate how long this should take, and if you want to be very careful in figuring this out, you could also time yourself during each of these steps one day, and that would give you a very clear picture, presumably, of how long things should take. Next, what you want to do is you want to make sure that the estimated time fits well within how much time you allot yourself. So then you shouldn't need to rush. Because if, let's say, you allow 45 minutes for your morning routine, and when you look at it takes about 30 minutes, you actually have a 15-minute buffer. Obviously, there are things that can impact that we'll get to in a minute, but the idea is if presumably the main stuff you normally have to do fits well within the time, then theoretically you should be fine, and that means that one, you hopefully shouldn't have to feel like you're rushing, or if you are feeling you have to rush and there's legitimacy to that, then obviously that's something else to examine. Okay, so if the estimated time fits in well, you're fine. Presumably, you have enough time. If it turns out that you don't have enough time to fit in what you need to, then you want to look at, can you extend the time or the things that you can cut out? Because once you set this up, if it's realistic, it presumably should work where you have enough time to get done what you need to, and then hopefully you don't have to rush or don't feel like you're going to have to rush because you should have more than enough time. Okay, so the second main step in ultimately allowing yourself to be able to slow down is to identify distractions that hinder you from completing the routine as planned. So for example, if we're talking about the morning routine, playing on your phone, inconsistencies on when your kids wake up and need assistance. Whatever it is, estimate on the high end how long you would need to be devoting time to managing these items if you cannot cut them out of your routine. Obviously, you could do your best to cut out playing on your phone. You can't really cut your kids, in most cases, out of your routine. But in any event, I realize there's things that can come up that aren't planned, or in general, stuff that you have to do, which obviously makes sense a lot of ways you need to do it. So it's a matter of figuring out how do you make sure to work those into your routine so that doesn't throw you off. Okay, the third main step is to figure out what tools work for you to calm yourself down and remain calm if you feel pressured because of time. So we've identified up to this point what you can do from a practical standpoint to make sure you actually have enough time to get done what you need to. But assuming that's the case, then this is where the tools come into play to help yourself to calm down, knowing that what you have set out for yourself is realistic. So in terms of strategies, the first one you could try is positive self-talk. So having a quick phrase you can use such as, I can do this. I have enough time to do everything without rushing. Just something simple you can remind yourself of. The next item is a mindfulness activity to clear your mind and manage the physiological responses. Because oftentimes, if you feel like you're rushing, you may feel like your heart's racing or some sort of other physiological effect. So a mindfulness activity can be really helpful. Obviously, one, you probably want to keep that pretty short so it doesn't take up too much more time. And you also want to allot time that if you're going to be doing this and work that into your morning routine or whatever routine we're talking about. So now we're going to talk about our third and final strategy for a practical tool to help yourself to be able to relax a little more and not feel as pressured to get when you're trying to get stuff done. So mindset is really important. So for example, if you're doing work before actually getting to work or work time, if you're working from home, and it's impacting getting things done in the morning at home, maybe stop doing things for work then. So if you need extra time for work, consider viable alternatives, such as get up 20 minutes earlier, return emails from overnight, and set an alarm so after 20 minutes you start your morning routine. Or maybe do 20 minutes of work in the evening before relaxing, such as planning for the next day or responding to emails that you did not get to previously. So the idea is, if you have stuff that you really just can't fit in well, or it becomes too much of a stress trying to balance between, let's say, work stuff and personal stuff as you're getting ready in the morning, or even during the workday, if you're constantly shifting between personal stuff and work stuff, whether you're in an office or not, that in itself may make it harder to stay focused and be as productive, and you may feel more stressed because you keep trying to cram stuff into a time period that's just not feasible to get it all done. So look at dividing stuff up, because that can really help in terms of being able to not feel as pressured, because realistically you don't have as much you're cramming to that individual time period then. Okay, so as we're getting to the conclusion part of today's podcast, let's think about the idea of being intentional with your time and planning out how you use it, while also allowing for flexibility to deal with unexpected things that slow you down, because these things can ultimately help you to be more efficient and hopefully more relaxed. And it's important to think about this. Doing these things takes a lot of practice, and sometimes trial and error. So I encourage you to be patient, kind to yourself, and keep working at adjusting things as needed until you feel like you have mastered slowing yourself down when doing a specific routine. Finally, are you up for another challenge? If so, once you get things squared away with one routine, translate the tools that worked to tackle another one that is not working as well. I hope that you have enjoyed this podcast. Until next time, I'm Dr. Kerry Heller.